Take those handcuffs off her. Right now." The command echoed through the lobby with such unmistakable authority that every conversation stopped in an instant. Coffee cups froze halfway to waiting hands. Computer keyboards fell silent. Even the steady crackle of police radios seemed to disappear beneath the weight of those 7 words. Captain Michael Donovan stood perfectly still, his eyes fixed on the woman standing calmly near the reception desk. His next words changed the atmosphere inside the building forever. United States Attorney Vanessa Brooks. One after another, every officer within earshot instinctively straightened their posture. Faces that had shown routine confidence only moments before suddenly reflected confusion, disbelief, and growing concern. The silence became so complete that the faint hum of the fluorescent lights overhead sounded louder than anyone remembered. Only Officer Ethan Walker remained frozen, still holding the small key that fit the restraints on Vanessa Brooks' wrists. He looked from the captain to the woman in front of him, searching every face for an explanation that refused to come. Agent David Collins entered the lobby seconds later, immediately recognizing Vanessa. His expression tightened, not with anger, but with quiet disbelief that such a scene had unfolded inside the very department scheduled to host a federal briefing on professional accountability. Vanessa never raised her voice. She never demanded respect. She simply met Ethan's eyes with the same composed expression she had carried since walking through the front entrance. "You had 7 opportunities to verify my identity," she said softly. Her words were neither emotional nor dramatic. They were factual. That made them impossible to dismiss. Ethan blinked, struggling to understand what she meant. 7 opportunities? His thoughts raced backward through the past half hour, replaying every conversation, every document, every question, every decision. For the first time that morning, certainty began giving way to doubt. Vanessa continued in the same measured tone. "Every one of those choices is now part of the official record." No one interrupted her. Captain Donovan remained silent. Agent Collins remained silent. The officers lining the hallway remained silent. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any accusation, and this silence carried the weight of undeniable truth. Ethan swallowed hard as he finally noticed something he had ignored from the very beginning. Vanessa had never argued. She had never pleaded. She had never attempted to use her position to intimidate anyone. She had simply asked for the same thing over and over again. Verification, procedure, fairness, nothing more. Captain Donovan slowly turned toward the officers gathered nearby. "Preserve every camera recording covering the lobby," he instructed calmly. "No files are to be altered. No reports are to be changed." Several supervisors immediately acknowledged the order. Ethan felt the room shifting around him in ways he could neither control nor explain. The authority he believed belonged entirely to his badge suddenly seemed much smaller than it had only minutes earlier. Vanessa glanced briefly toward the security cameras mounted high above the entrance before looking back at Ethan one final time. "The truth does not become true because someone important recognizes it," she said quietly. "It was true before anyone walked through that door." Then the story turns back exactly 27 minutes earlier, to the ordinary morning when a woman carrying nothing more than a leather portfolio stepped into the building, and one decision after another quietly set everything that followed into motion. 27 minutes earlier, the Richmond Police Department looked exactly as it did on any ordinary Tuesday morning. Fluorescent lights cast a cool glow across the polished floors while dispatch radios carried routine updates from patrol units across the city. Officers exchanged quiet greetings, detectives balanced paper files with cups of fresh coffee, and citizens waited patiently inside the reception area for appointments that seemed no different from any other day. Outside, the Virginia air was crisp, and traffic moved steadily beneath a gray autumn sky. Nothing about the morning suggested that a single encounter inside the lobby would soon become a lesson remembered throughout the department. A dark blue sedan eased into a visitor parking space across the street. Vanessa Brooks stepped out carrying a slim leather portfolio in one hand and a small government-issued identification wallet tucked neatly inside her briefcase. She wore a navy business suit with polished black shoes, professional without drawing attention to herself. There was no official motorcade, no flashing lights, no federal security detail. That decision had been entirely intentional. Vanessa believed that organizations often revealed their true character only when no one believed they were being observed. Weeks earlier, Captain Michael Donovan had personally invited her to conduct a confidential briefing concerning federal recommendations on procedural accountability. Only a handful of senior personnel knew she would be visiting that morning. Vanessa crossed the sidewalk at an unhurried pace, taking in small details that many people would never notice. A maintenance employee held the entrance door open for several officers, receiving little more than hurried nods in return. A young patrol officer paused to help an elderly visitor locate the reception desk before continuing toward the hallway. Nearby, a civilian clerk greeted everyone with the same warm smile regardless of rank or uniform. Vanessa quietly appreciated those moments. Leadership often revealed itself through ordinary interactions long before official meetings ever began. As the glass doors closed behind her, the familiar sounds of a working police department surrounded her. Computer keyboards clicked steadily. Telephones rang at irregular intervals. A printer produced another stack of reports waiting to be reviewed. Vanessa approached the reception counter with a calm, welcoming smile. Before she could introduce herself, Officer Ethan Walker looked up from his computer. His eyes moved briefly from her face to the leather portfolio she carried and then back again. Something subtle changed in his expression. It was not recognition. It was not curiosity. It was the quiet confidence of someone who believed he had already reached a conclusion before asking the first question. Vanessa spoke in a courteous tone. "Good morning. I have a scheduled meeting with Captain Michael Donovan." Ethan leaned back slightly in his chair instead of reaching for the visitor log. "Do you have identification?" he asked. Vanessa nodded and carefully removed her official federal credentials, placing them on the counter where they could easily be examined beneath the bright overhead lights. "Of course," she replied. "Captain Donovan is expecting me." Ethan lowered his eyes toward the credentials for only the briefest moment before sliding them back across the counter without reading the name in full. "We will determine that," he answered evenly. Vanessa calmly accepted the credentials and placed them back inside her portfolio. She noticed the telephone resting beside Ethan's keyboard, the visitor log still unopened, and the digital clock on the wall quietly counting the minutes until her scheduled meeting. Without realizing it, Officer Ethan Walker was standing at the very first crossroads of a morning that would test far more than procedure. Officer Ethan Walker rested his forearms on the reception counter without making any effort to contact Captain Michael Donovan. The telephone remained within easy reach, yet he ignored it completely. Vanessa Brooks noticed the decision immediately. Over the course of her career, she had learned that the smallest choices often revealed the largest problems. She maintained the same composed expression and spoke with quiet professionalism. "Captain Donovan has a copy of my appointment confirmation. A quick call will resolve this in less than a minute." Ethan gave a faint smile that reflected confidence rather than courtesy. "If everything checks out, then there is nothing to worry about." Vanessa slowly removed a neatly folded appointment letter from her portfolio and placed it on the counter. The official seal of the United States Department of Justice was clearly visible across the top of the page, along with Captain Donovan's name, the meeting time, and a federal reference number. Ethan barely glanced at the document before sliding it back toward her. "Paper can be created by anyone," he said evenly. Vanessa accepted the letter without showing frustration. That was the second opportunity. Several feet away, Officer Olivia Bennett quietly looked up from the report she had been reviewing. She had not intended to listen, yet the conversation had gradually drawn her attention. As Vanessa returned the letter to her portfolio, Olivia caught a brief glimpse of the federal seal. It looked authentic. She walked a little closer under the pretense of organizing paperwork on a nearby shelf. "Ethan," she said carefully, "Captain Donovan has several scheduled meetings this morning. It might be worth confirming before we keep her waiting." Ethan never looked away from Vanessa. "I know how to manage the front desk," he replied. Olivia nodded politely, but uncertainty settled into her thoughts. Vanessa calmly reached into her portfolio once again and removed a government business card. She placed it beside the appointment letter. "This is my direct office number. If you prefer, you may contact my office instead." Ethan picked up the card, studied it for only a second, and returned it to the counter. "Business cards are easy to print," he answered. That became the third opportunity. Vanessa quietly folded her hands together, never raising her voice, never attempting to argue. Around them, the ordinary rhythm of the police department continued. Citizens checked in for appointments. Telephones rang. Officers crossed the lobby carrying case files from one office to another. The routine atmosphere made the growing tension at the reception desk even more noticeable. Vanessa briefly looked toward the digital clock mounted above the visitor entrance. Less than 10 minutes remained before the scheduled briefing. She met Ethan's eyes once more. Captain Donovan will be expecting me shortly. Ethan folded his arms. If he scheduled the meeting, he can wait until I finish verifying your story. Vanessa answered with remarkable patience. Verification begins by contacting the person expecting me. Her words hung quietly in the air. Olivia glanced toward the telephone on the desk, then back toward Ethan, wondering why the simplest step had become the only one he refused to take. Vanessa noticed Olivia's hesitation but said nothing. She had no interest in winning an argument. She only wanted the process to work the way it was designed to work. Every unanswered request, every ignored document, and every missed opportunity was quietly becoming part of a timeline that none of them could yet see. Upstairs, Captain Michael Donovan checked the conference room clock for the second time that morning, unaware that the first 3 opportunities to prevent an unnecessary mistake had already come and gone. The reception area grew noticeably quieter as the minutes slipped away. What had begun as an ordinary visitor check had slowly become the focus of curious glances from officers walking through the lobby. Vanessa Brooks remained exactly where she was, standing with quiet confidence and her leather portfolio resting against her side. She neither complained nor demanded special treatment. She simply waited for the process she had requested from the beginning. Officer Ethan Walker interpreted her patience as stubbornness rather than professionalism. To him, every calm answer only reinforced the conclusion he had already reached. I still need to determine why you are here, he said. Vanessa answered without hesitation. I have already explained why I am here. The quickest way to confirm it is to contact Captain Michael Donovan. Ethan shook his head. I will decide what the quickest way is. Vanessa looked at him for a brief moment before speaking again. Procedure exists so that none of us have to rely on assumptions. Ethan ignored the comment entirely. At that moment, the reception telephone rang. The dispatcher glanced at the display before speaking. This call is coming from the United States Attorney's Office. They are asking for Captain Donovan. Several officers nearby looked toward the front desk. Ethan answered before anyone else could respond. Tell them the captain is occupied. I will handle it. The dispatcher hesitated only briefly before relaying the message. Vanessa listened quietly without interrupting. She simply watched another opportunity disappear. That became the 4th opportunity to verify her identity. Seconds later, a vibration came from inside Vanessa's portfolio. She carefully removed a government-issued cellular phone just long enough to glance at the screen. The caller identification displayed Special Agent David Collins. Before she could answer, Ethan extended his hand. Please place the phone on the counter. Vanessa met his eyes. This device contains official government communications. Ethan remained firm. Set it on the counter. Without argument, Vanessa complied. The phone vibrated again with the same incoming call. Ethan looked at the screen, pressed the silence button, and slid the phone several inches away. You can have it back after we finish here, he said. Vanessa calmly replied. That call could have resolved every concern you have raised. Ethan answered with quiet certainty. Or it could have supported a story that has not been verified. That became the 5th opportunity. Across the lobby, Officer Olivia Bennett felt increasingly uneasy. She quietly opened the department's visitor schedule to confirm the day's appointments. Within seconds, she found Captain Michael Donovan's calendar entry. It listed a confidential meeting with United States Attorney Vanessa Brooks at exactly 9 o'clock that morning. Olivia looked from the screen to Vanessa, then toward Ethan. Ethan, she said carefully, the captain does have a confidential appointment scheduled right now. I really think we should call upstairs. Ethan turned toward her, his expression firm. I appreciate your concern, Olivia, but I am handling this. Olivia lowered her voice. Verification only takes a few seconds. Ethan answered immediately. This discussion is over. Olivia slowly stepped back, but she did not close the calendar window on her computer. Vanessa noticed the exchange without saying a word. She understood that systems rarely failed because of one person's decision alone. They failed when reasonable questions stopped being asked. She looked once more at the large digital clock on the wall. Only a few minutes remained before the scheduled briefing should have begun. Somewhere above the lobby, Captain Michael Donovan glanced toward the empty chair reserved for his guest, while downstairs the sixth opportunity to prevent an unnecessary mistake quietly slipped away. Upstairs, Captain Michael Donovan glanced once again at the conference room clock. 9 o'clock had come and gone. The presentation materials remained neatly arranged across the polished table, and an untouched cup of coffee had already begun to cool. Vanessa Brooks had built a reputation for arriving early to every official meeting. Being late was completely out of character. Donovan reached for his phone and dialed her government number. Instead of hearing her familiar voice, the call rang unanswered. He frowned, checked the appointment confirmation one more time, and immediately placed another call. This time he contacted Special Agent David Collins, who had been preparing documents in a nearby federal office. "David, Vanessa has not made it upstairs," Donovan said. "She arrived at the building nearly 10 minutes ago, according to security." Collins did not hesitate. "She does not miss meetings. Stay where you are. I am on my way." Within moments, Collins entered the building through a secure entrance and met Donovan outside the conference room. Both men walked quickly toward the security office. The technician on duty immediately pulled up the entrance cameras. There she was. Vanessa entered the front lobby exactly on schedule, carrying nothing except her leather portfolio. The video showed her approaching the reception desk. Then the recording continued, minute after minute, without showing her leaving. Collins leaned closer to the monitor. "She is still in the building." Donovan's expression changed from confusion to concern. "Zoom in on the lobby." The technician enlarged the camera view. Although there was no audio, they could clearly see Vanessa standing calmly near the reception counter while Officer Ethan Walker remained in front of her. Olivia Bennett appeared nearby, speaking briefly before stepping away. Donovan watched Ethan gesture several times without ever picking up the telephone sitting inches from his hand. "Why has nobody called me?" Donovan asked quietly. No one in the security office had an answer. Collins checked the secure location service connected to Vanessa's government-issued cellular phone. A small blue indicator appeared almost instantly on the digital map. "Her phone has not moved," he said. "It is still inside the main lobby." Donovan wasted no time. "Come with me." They stepped into the hallway and headed toward the elevator at a brisk pace. As the elevator doors closed, neither man spoke. They did not need to. The security footage had already raised more questions than either expected to face that morning. Downstairs, Vanessa remained remarkably composed despite the growing attention around her. She noticed several officers quietly watching from nearby hallways while pretending to organize paperwork or review reports. No one openly challenged Ethan's decisions, yet the atmosphere had changed. The certainty that had filled the lobby earlier was slowly giving way to uncertainty. Olivia returned to the reception area carrying a folder she did not actually need. She stopped beside Ethan and spoke softly enough that only he could hear. "The appointment is listed on the captain's calendar." "Everything matches." Ethan barely looked at her. "Calendars can contain mistakes." Olivia answered carefully. "Then let the captain tell us that himself." Ethan remained unmoved. Vanessa listened without interrupting. She had now witnessed another decision replacing verification with assumption. Somewhere above them, the elevator descended floor by floor. With every passing second, the distance between misunderstanding and undeniable truth grew smaller, and no one standing in the lobby realized that the next time those elevator doors opened, the morning would never feel ordinary again. The elevator doors opened with a quiet chime, and Captain Michael Donovan stepped into the lobby with Special Agent David Collins only a pace behind him. Neither man hurried, yet the purpose in their stride drew immediate attention from everyone nearby. Officers instinctively moved aside as the two approached the reception desk. Ethan Walker looked up, convinced that his decision would soon be confirmed. Instead, Captain Donovan's eyes searched the lobby until they settled on Vanessa Brooks. His expression shifted instantly from concern to disbelief. "Ms. Brooks," he said, his voice measured but unmistakably urgent. "I have been waiting for you." Vanessa offered a polite nod. "Good morning, Captain." There was no frustration in her tone, no accusation, only the calm professionalism she had maintained from the moment she entered the building. Donovan looked briefly at Ethan before turning back to Vanessa. "I apologize for the delay." Ethan stepped forward before anyone else could speak. Captain, she presented documents that could not be verified. Donovan looked directly at him. Did you call my office? Ethan hesitated for the first time that morning. No, sir. Did you contact the United States Attorney's Office using the number on her credentials? No, sir. Donovan continued, each question arriving with quiet precision. Did you ask dispatch to verify her federal identification? No, sir. Did you answer the call that came from her office? Ethan lowered his eyes for only a moment. No, sir. The silence that followed felt heavier than any raised voice could have been. Olivia Bennett stood several feet away, saying nothing. She already knew every answer before the questions had been asked. Agent David Collins stepped beside Vanessa and offered a respectful nod. Counselor Brooks, I have your briefing materials. Several officers exchanged uncertain glances. The title alone carried enough significance to change the atmosphere in the room. Collins then addressed Captain Donovan without lowering his voice. The Department of Justice requested today's meeting after reviewing procedural compliance reports submitted over the past several months. Ethan listened carefully, still trying to understand where the conversation was leading. Collins continued. One purpose of today's visit was to discuss recommendations for strengthening verification procedures and eliminating decisions based on personal assumptions rather than established policy. No one missed the irony. Donovan slowly turned toward the officers gathered throughout the lobby. Every member of this department has been reminded repeatedly that verification protects everyone, including our officers, our visitors, and the integrity of every investigation. He looked back at Ethan. Procedure exists because assumptions eventually fail. Vanessa quietly opened her leather portfolio and removed the same appointment letter, federal credentials, and business card that had already been presented earlier that morning. She placed them gently on the counter once more. Nothing about the documents had changed. The only difference was that people were finally willing to read them. Ethan stared at the identification for several long seconds. The official seal, the federal credentials, the appointment confirmation, and the signatures were exactly as they had been when Vanessa first entered the building. Every opportunity to verify them had been available from the beginning. Vanessa folded her hands once again and spoke with the same steady voice she had used throughout the morning. Systems earn public trust when they follow procedure before reaching conclusions. Her words settled over the lobby as Captain Donovan slowly nodded in agreement. Around them, officers who had witnessed the entire exchange began to recognize that what had unfolded was far larger than a misunderstanding. Without anyone intending it, the department had just received the most important demonstration of procedural accountability it could ever have been given. Captain Michael Donovan slowly picked up the federal credentials from the reception counter and examined them for only a few seconds before handing them back to Vanessa Brooks with both hands, a gesture of unmistakable respect. He then faced the officers gathered throughout the lobby. Everyone, this is United States Attorney Vanessa Brooks. She is the lead federal prosecutor assigned to oversee today's procedural accountability review and the legal advisors supporting an active Department of Justice initiative involving agency compliance. The words settled over the room like a sudden change in weather. Conversations stopped completely. Officers who had been quietly observing from nearby hallways instinctively straightened their posture. Several removed their hands from their pockets. Others lowered the reports they had been reading. Even civilian employees sensed that they were witnessing something far more significant than a delayed meeting. Ethan Walker remained motionless. The confidence that had shaped every decision he made during the previous 27 minutes quietly disappeared as he finally understood who had been standing in front of him the entire time. He replayed each moment in his mind with painful clarity. The appointment letter, the federal credentials, the business card, the telephone call, Olivia's recommendation, the calendar entry. Every opportunity had been real. Every opportunity had been dismissed. Agent David Collins stepped beside Vanessa and addressed the room in a calm, professional voice. This morning was intended to begin with a discussion about public trust, procedural consistency, and the importance of verification. None of us expected the first lesson to arrive before the meeting itself. His statement was not directed at one individual alone. Every person listening understood that accountability belonged to an entire organization, not merely a single officer. Olivia Bennett quietly lowered her eyes for a moment. She remembered each time she had considered speaking more firmly, and each time she had accepted Ethan's assurance instead. The realization weighed heavily on her. Sometimes doing the right thing required more than recognizing a problem. It required finding the courage to interrupt it. Captain Donovan turned back toward Vanessa. On behalf of this department, I sincerely apologize for what occurred before your meeting could begin. Vanessa offered a respectful nod. Thank you, Captain. Accountability begins with acknowledging reality exactly as it happened. Her response carried neither satisfaction nor resentment. It reflected the same quiet professionalism she had demonstrated since walking through the front entrance. Donovan looked around the lobby once more. Let this serve as a reminder to every member of this department. Titles are not what deserve respect. Procedures deserve respect because they protect every citizen equally. Several officers nodded almost instinctively. The lesson had become impossible to ignore. Ethan finally spoke, his voice noticeably quieter than before. I believed I was protecting the department. Vanessa looked at him with calm understanding rather than hostility. Good intentions cannot replace proper procedure. When assumptions take the place of verification, everyone becomes vulnerable, including the officer making the decision. No one challenged her words because no one could. They reflected exactly what every person in the lobby had just witnessed. The digital clock above the entrance continued marking each passing second as though nothing extraordinary had happened, yet everyone standing there understood they would remember this morning long after the hands on that clock completed another circuit. Without raising her voice even once, Vanessa Brooks had transformed a routine misunderstanding into the most powerful demonstration of professional accountability that many inside the building would experience during their entire careers. Captain Michael Donovan took a slow breath before addressing the communications supervisor standing near the security office entrance. Preserve every recording from the lobby beginning 1 hour before Ms. Brooks arrived. Secure the visitor log, the dispatch records, the telephone logs, and every related report. Nothing is to be edited, replaced, or deleted. His instructions were delivered without anger, yet everyone understood their importance. The purpose was not to assign blame before facts were reviewed. The purpose was to protect the truth exactly as it existed. The communications supervisor immediately acknowledged the order and contacted the records unit. Within minutes, digital evidence was being secured according to departmental policy. Vanessa Brooks quietly watched the process unfold. This was exactly how accountability was supposed to work. Calm decisions, clear procedures, reliable documentation. She turned toward Captain Donovan with the same composed expression she had carried throughout the morning. Thank you for preserving the record, she said. The integrity of an investigation depends upon the integrity of its evidence. Donovan nodded. Our department will cooperate completely. Special Agent David Collins stepped forward holding a slim folder containing the briefing materials originally prepared for the meeting upstairs. Counselor Brooks, the recommendations remain the same, he said. Only the example has changed. A few officers exchanged thoughtful glances. The statement carried more weight than anyone expected. The planned presentation had focused on hypothetical situations involving procedural failures. Instead, the department had just experienced a real one with every important lesson unfolding in front of dozens of witnesses. Olivia Bennett remained quietly near the reception desk. She replayed the morning in her mind, wondering whether she should have insisted more firmly when she first recognized the appointment on Captain Donovan's calendar. Vanessa noticed her expression and walked a few steps closer. Officer Bennett, she said gently, you asked the right questions. Olivia looked up. I should have done more. Vanessa offered a small, understanding smile. Professional courage grows through moments exactly like this. Remember what you felt today, and the next time your voice will arrive sooner. Olivia slowly nodded. Those words stayed with her more deeply than any formal lecture ever could. Across the lobby, Ethan Walker remained unusually quiet. No one mocked him. No one argued with him. The absence of public humiliation made the lesson even more powerful. Captain Donovan approached him privately. Administrative review will follow standard policy, he said. You will have the opportunity to explain every decision you made. The review will rely on evidence, not assumptions. Ethan answered with a subdued voice. I understand, Captain. For the first time that morning, he realized that the same procedural fairness he had denied someone else would now protect him as well. Vanessa observed the exchange without interruption. That was the purpose of consistent procedure. It served every person equally, regardless of title, position, or circumstance. As the final copies of the security recordings were secured, the atmosphere inside the lobby gradually shifted. The tension that had filled the room was replaced by quiet reflection. Officers resumed their duties, but many moved with a new awareness of the responsibility carried by every ordinary decision. Before leaving the reception area for the delayed briefing, Vanessa looked once more at the front entrance where the morning had begun. A single unanswered question had become a documented lesson. A single missed verification had become an opportunity for an entire department to strengthen its commitment to fairness. Sometimes the most meaningful form of justice was not found in punishment at all. Sometimes it began with the simple decision to preserve the truth and allow it to speak for itself. The delayed meeting finally began, but no one in the conference room believed the most important lesson would come from the presentation slides waiting on the screen. Those lessons had already been written in real time downstairs. Vanessa Brooks stood beside the conference table and looked around the room with quiet confidence. Every face reflected the events of the morning in a different way. Some carried regret. Others carried determination. All of them carried a better understanding of why procedure mattered. Vanessa allowed the silence to settle before speaking. Every profession built on public trust faces the same choice every single day, she said. We can make assumptions, or we can verify facts. Only one of those choices protects everyone equally. No one reached for a notebook. No one needed to. The words landed because they matched exactly what everyone had witnessed. Captain Michael Donovan nodded thoughtfully. Policies exist because people are human, he said. They protect citizens, but they also protect officers from allowing confidence to replace judgment. Vanessa smiled slightly. Exactly. The badge, the title, the office, and the credentials all matter. But they matter less than the discipline to follow the process every single time. Across the room, Ethan Walker listened without interrupting. For the first time in many years, he understood that experience alone could never replace humility. He realized that professionalism was measured not by how quickly someone reached a conclusion, but by how carefully someone avoided reaching the wrong one. Olivia Bennett also reflected on the morning. She had recognized the warning signs, yet she had allowed hesitation to silence her voice. That realization would remain with her throughout her career, shaping every difficult decision that lay ahead. Before the meeting concluded, Captain Donovan addressed everyone present. Effective immediately, every visitor verification procedure will be reviewed, updated, and reinforced through additional training. Questions will never again be viewed as obstacles. They will be recognized for what they truly are, safeguards. Several officers quietly nodded. The commitment felt genuine because it had been earned rather than announced. As the meeting came to an end, Vanessa gathered her portfolio and prepared to leave. Donovan walked with her toward the front entrance where the morning had first unfolded. Sunlight now streamed through the glass doors, filling the lobby with a warmth that had been absent only an hour earlier. Before stepping outside, Vanessa paused for a final moment. She looked at the officers returning to their daily responsibilities and spoke softly enough that everyone nearby naturally fell silent to listen. The measure of justice is not how we treat the people whose names we recognize. It is how we treat the people whose names we do not know yet. No one answered because no answer was necessary. Those words lingered long after she walked through the doors and disappeared into the bright Virginia afternoon. Inside the department, telephones began ringing again, keyboards resumed their steady rhythm, and another ordinary workday continued. Yet nothing felt entirely ordinary anymore. Every officer who had witnessed the morning carried away the same lasting truth. Respect should never depend on appearance. Fairness should never depend on assumption. And the strongest authority any public servant can possess is the courage to let truth lead before judgment follows. He believed the badge gave him the final word, but that day he discovered something greater. The law was never meant to speak with the loudest voice. It was always meant to speak with the fairest one.